reconocer uno sa fallar y no está admitir uno sa pecar, nos no a asumir nos responsabilidad, nos a ocuparnos unos mes, nos damos pueblo, puta carga bonombe, y bua priminti, pulubo sana nos país, si nos humillan mes, y así oración, y cambia dirección, pa nos estima a vosotros. Sana nos país a ver, nos darogana a vos por tres semanas, gozo dino salvación. Pueblo, puta carga bonombe, nos da reconocer, turnos fallonar. Oh Señor, respóndenos por favor y sánanos, país. Vergüenza y tan me duele, pero todo no está bien y se acabó. Va sobra bota un tata, quien de misericordia, botanos Dios, cutalije pa por Manos país, mandamos luz en oscuridad, nos da humillanos mes, y así oración y cambia dirección, va nos estima a vosotros. Nos país a ver, larga buen nombre nos da a reconocer, tú nos fallonar. Oh Señor, respóndenos por favor. Felizmente. Bendición para Corsou, Aruba, Bonaire, Isla Riba e Snoek de Mira. Aqui na Holanda, o menino programa The Great Awakening arriva e promete luna, e per me? Sì, promete luna di augustus 2025. Você viu Coach Glenn tem para servir com carinho e o amor. Ave me tem um programa diferente. Door come a mas de trabalho de casa, então uma coisa que frequente, então me tem nister muito op, então me tem para mim, o que me tem para mim, me tem sintonista também. Deus me desculpa, pensei. Pero nós preparamos um programa interessante. Maneira você começar, nós e papel de near death experience. Um, 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 nós temos entrevista também de gente que tem near death experience. De facto, nós temos speaker que deve papel de evento que estava tendo near death experience, qual da Jeff Clacky. Felizmente para Miriam Olivia. Felizmente para botar Miriam de Aruba. Tá, mbete. Bom dia, tur alma na bonita. Felizmente para você. Confio que tur costa bom banda na. Sì, então, ovviamente, ma pensa, para me pone un video di un persona con un near death experience vivendo na Holanda, Amsterdam. Ela passa de un pari a bastante, sì. Pero mais interessante, mas net se sin saco na Amsterdam, na Holanda viva. Dus mi dice sicuro che dove guste. Anto nos lo vai papel também naturalmente di evento e assunto di compra di tickets. Nos vai promettere e parte di storia di near death experience. Anto depois nos vai papel tocando de evento, ok? Lo qual me tem encoraja cada um de vocês tá para não tem tempo por que tem espaço aí escreve algum coisa que está interessante dentro senhora sua história. Tem pare coisas que está hobby bom, com mas me de maneira uma vez mas estudia pelo menos pico ni that experience durante cada um tem bem coisas que está comum. Dus si we por has een notulation die kikota e kosnan ku a spreekbo aan ding historia anterior na final bota do namin na botin ganan en comments en nos por elaborar na, okay? En dat historia no tan largo, está más o menos 30 minutos, menos que 30 minutos. Dus te cortico, que me nos programma normalmente uma hora e meia. Eigenlijk uma hora, pero hora nos entrevista nos uma hora e meia, 2 horas. Assim. Dus a continuação me vai over na história die persoon aqui. Guarda no, Alexander. Guarda. Samen bij Lies. Okay? So, welcome din programa The Great Awakening awin to a continuación Alexander tabay doon na sua story, okay?
My name is Alexandra Zvalkalos, and I'm very humbled and excited to share my story today on this platform. It happened a long time ago. It happened in the 90s of the last century. And even though it happened so many years ago, I still remember it very clearly as my death experience, as I call it myself, has obviously really marked and changed my life in every sense of the word and in every dimension and layer of my life. So I'm delighted to share my story. I was an art student in Amsterdam, Holland, and I was on my bicycle, as all the Amsterdammers do, on my way to school on a Friday morning in April. And I stopped for a red light, which was positioned on a very big crossing in the middle of town, in the middle of the center of Amsterdam. And so I had got off my bike waiting for the red light. And then while I was waiting, a very big vehicle pulled up beside me. And I didn't really take too much notice. I was too focused on the stoplight to go green. And it was a beautiful morning. in Amsterdam, like one of those glorious spring mornings. And I was very excited because also in 3 days it was going to be Queen's Day, which is the birthday celebration of the monarch in Holland. And in those days we had a queen, Queen Beatrix. And Queen's Day is the biggest open air party of the year. And I was very excited about that and the beautiful weather. So that was my whole sort of vibe for that day. And so as the light turns green, I got back on my bike and I noticed that the vehicle next to me, the truck, had started to actually move quite fast. And as it was veering off to the right, it pushed me into the curb. So I was getting very, very, very close to the curb and the sideway of the road. And I remember even looking up, trying to see the cabin and to see if I could catch a glimpse of the driver to sort of warn me. And that did not happen. And as it sort of comes closer and closer, it all moved very fast. And then what I remember is I just felt like a big thud from the back. And then everything turned to black. So what had happened is that the weight of the truck, the impact of the collision with my body, as the truck had driven over my body, had caused for my spirit, for my soul to leave my body. And so the next thing that I experience as my consciousness comes back online is that I'm outside of my body. And it felt like I had spiraled out and I was hovering over the scene. And I remember it like everything was in a freeze frame. Everything had come to a still stand. And I looked down and I saw a black and white pedestrian crossing, a zebra path. And I saw my bike and I saw myself sort of strangely under the bike. And I felt very detached. It was like I had no emotion and I felt no pain. And as I sort of expanded into that out-of-body consciousness, I then realized that I had 360 degrees peripheral vision, which was an amazing experience and awareness. And I recall that I sort of lingered in that vision, in this beauty and this surprise of that experience, that expanded awareness, and having that amazing view over Amsterdam. Then when I really focused on what had happened and I was looking downstairs, like down from me, I started to notice people running towards me from both sides. There was a canal with a bridge that I had just crossed. And so there was people sort of running over that little bridge and coming from the other street. And I remember realizing, oh, what are all these people doing? And why are these people coming so close to me? Why are they sort of encroaching on my space? And I felt a sort of panic. And I started to realize that actually what had happened was very serious. And then as I started to have more connection with my body, with my physical body down below, it dawned on me that I was in a very bad shape. And the more that I sensed those people, the more panic, the more anxiety I felt. And I thought, why don't these people just let me die here? I had that awareness. And then I see a single person that turned out to be a man later, as I learned that. So a man is running towards me over the bridge, and I see him starting to sort of keep the people at a distance from me. And he squatted beside me, he sat beside me, and I saw that he pulled a white handkerchief from his pocket. And this man actually came to save my life. And so as I laid there dying, this man was beside me. And then as I took in the seriousness, the weight of the whole situation, my consciousness in the kite realized that I was dead. And I remember seeing my legs all strangely sort of cradling the frame of the bike. And I saw blood trickling between my legs. And I thought, okay, that's it. I'm dead. My body is dead. And then in a split second, it was like everything started to move really fast. It was that freeze frame completely dissolved. Everything started to move. I started to also feel emotions and pain. I had an awareness of all of that. And then it was like in a nanosecond, I severed my remaining connection with my body down below on the street. I let go of the life. It was a very fast decision. And then it was like a cord snapped, and I felt that I moved at great speed away from Earth, through the sky, into the stratosphere. And then everything went black. And so what I had just described probably just took maybe 3-4 minutes. It took very short. But in my experience of that expanded awareness, that out of body, it felt like it had lasted much longer. So there was already distortion of time. And so everything was black. And then the first recollection I have of re-emerging into some kind of consciousness was a sensation of floating in space. And that was very beautiful. It was very peaceful. And I remember that I thought, wow, this feels so familiar. I think I've done this before. And as I was floating, I also realized that I was experiencing my own immortality. I remember I was floating in the cosmos. I have an awareness that there is light. I also had an awareness that space was not black. I remember it as a sort of velvety blue, very deep, very soft. And so it was almost a sensual experience of floating there and feeling very peaceful. And I enjoyed it, and I thought it was a very interesting experience. And I already thought that it brought back memories, that I had done that before, that I had been in the cosmos amongst the stars and the planets before. And then everything faded back to black. And then when my consciousness re-emerges, the first thing I become aware of is a swirling golden infinity sign, like a number 8, sort of forever swirling, moving. And it was very large from a human perspective. And it felt like my consciousness, that my spirit was somehow suspended above this swirling, rotating infinity sign. And that lasted for a moment. And then what I remember is that I was shown intimate scenes from the life that I had just departed. And I remember one scene in particular where I was taken to a moment where I was a teenager, 13, 14 years old, and I was having an argument with my mother. And as that scene unfolds itself in my awareness, what was so curious was that I was not experiencing it through my own perspective as the teenager, but I was taken inside my mom. So I almost re-witnessed, I re-experienced that whole argument, that whole sort of painful interaction between us through her perspective, through her eyes. And in that moment, I felt her pain. I felt her frustration. I felt her anxiety. And that really moved me. It impressed me very much. And I thought, how quaint is this? Like, wow, this is pain that I caused her. And it really left me with a big emotional impression. And some other themes also emerged. And I also recall that I remember witnessing scenes from that life as a tiny girl, as a toddler of maybe 2 years old, which, of course, from a human physiological perspective, we don't have any active memory of. So that was also kind of magical. And then the life scenes dissolve. And what I remember was that then it was like I experienced another expansion of my consciousness. And I am aware that it really opened up all the other realms. I was taken into all these other dimensions. It really was like an opening. That's the best way to describe it. What I realized, what my soul, what my spirit realized was that I had more than that life. It was an excitement, almost a relief. I thought, but I have lived many lives before. And I also had this sort of perspective, this view into future timelines. And I realized that I would live more lifetimes. And not only as a human, I was also aware that I existed in many other forms and lifetimes, and also other human forms simultaneously. And that was a very overwhelmingly profound experience because it sort of liberates you from that small mind, that small life, that one singular life. So that was very liberating, very exhilarating to have that as a knowing, to know that that was true, a quantum truth. And at the same time, realizing that actually you are always existing, not only in those lives, but as consciousness. And that was also left an incredibly deep experience on me. So from that, there was again this fading to black. The next dimension my consciousness awoke in is what I call the indigo blue sphere. So I don't recall very much from it, but I remember that I lingered, that I spent a certain amount of time in a sort of zone, in a dimension that was very deep indigo blue. And I was completely aware that I had no body, no physical form, that I had no name, that I had no identity, that I had no body, so I was nobody. And those knowings were so liberating. It was the most expanded I have ever felt, I think. That all of that was replaced with a feeling of being in this total connection, being one with this indigo blue sphere. This frequency is probably the best word. And this indigo blue space also had a sonic pulse. It had a sound, so there was this sort of sonic boom, very deep sort of rhythm that I remember. So there was that sonic pulsation, and it felt like I was a sort of wave that was undulating, existing, pulsating on that indigo blue ocean. And it felt very infinite and timeless and expansive and completely abstract. And it was also a feeling of total freedom. And it's a very beautiful feeling. And again, a fade to black. And then the last place or dimension that I reawoke in was what I would call source energy. So I had the incredibly profound experience of going back to our origins, to source energy. And in my talks about my experience, I often call it, I was being cradled in the arms of God, cradled in the arms of the divine. And my memories of being in that divine space, in that divine oneness, are very difficult to describe. As I always feel that the ecstasy, the euphoria, the oneness, the wholeness that I experienced there is something that is actually beyond language. It's beyond words. I feel often that words, they only manage to sort of describe the outline of it. There are no words to describe the depth, the wholeness, the divinity, the sheer divinity of that experience. It felt like I was home and I was completely at peace. I was one. I was aware that I was in this white golden light that was brimming with life and oneness, and it was just innately beautiful and profound. And I was very happily being there in that divine ecstasy. And then all of a sudden, there was a voice. I became aware of a voice. And that voice said something along the lines of, "You can't stay. You have to go back." And when I understood the impact of that, of those words, of that voice, I panicked. And then what happened is what I often describe as the bargaining with God, telepathically, of course. And I remember my soul, my spirit, begging and pleading with this invisible force, this invisible divine consciousness. And I pleaded for my life. I said, I am home. I am ecstatically happy. Please let me stay. And it didn't really engage with me, with my soul. At least I have no memory, no recall of that. And at some point I just heard it repeat its command. It said, no, you can't stay. You're going back. And from there again, there was no memory, there was a fade to black. And then I reawoke in an intensive care unit with my heart tied up to a ventilator machine where I was on life support. And so what I have described as my near-death experience and everything that I experienced and registered with my consciousness, to me, all these experiences in these different realms, they took hundreds of years. It really felt like I was there for a very long time. And so it showed me that, of course, there is a complete disparity between the experience of linear time as we have when we are in physicality in a body and when we are outside of the body, when we are just consciousness. Because all of those experiences and adventures that I had, they obviously were in linear time, in human perspective. They took place in a few minutes, but it really never, it doesn't take away any of the impact that those experiences had on me. I think it's become clear that my own near-death experience is quite different than many other experiences. For instance, I did not go through a tunnel, and I don't remember going to a light or seeing a light. So in that sense, my experience differs quite a bit from many others. So after my accident, of course, I spent a long time in hospital. I had a long recovery period as I suffered a lot of damage to my body and, of course, a very severe trauma from the whole near-death experience and a lot of things. But then I got back to life and I recovered amazingly well. What it gave me at the onset of my recovery was it sparked my spiritual journey. So I started on a metaphysical quest. I started reading metaphysical books, many books on death, because of course I was trying to get a certain handle. I was looking for a certain perspective on my experience because no one in my environment had any feedback. People would listen to me, but it wasn't exactly like a dialogue. It was basically just me. It was just a monologue and people being in awe of my experience. But there was no feedback that could provide any sort of real handle or perspective on this life-changing experience. So on my spiritual quest, I read a lot of books because in the 90s there was no internet. So I ordered a lot of books and I remember reading Raymond Moody and also the Tibetan Book of the Dead, where I learned about the different bardos. So in all of that, I started to gain a certain perspective on it that helped me to integrate all these amazing things that had happened to me. And all of that led to a very serendipitous meeting with the very famous past life regressionist therapist, Dolores Cannon. And I'm very grateful for that because this whole journey from having this very serious accident and then my afterlife experience and that whole journey, that path that flowed, that unfolded from that, brought many serendipitous and beautiful things and ultimately leading to my full spiritual awakening, during which I met the work of Dolores Cannon. And I decided to study with her and started to go in depth into quantum healing hypnosis and past lives. And what was so important for me in meeting her was that in all of her work, all of the questions I had and all of the things that were still a mystery or to me, or things that I still didn't really have any explanation for, they all tied up with her. The life on other planets, past life, simultaneous lives. And another beautiful aspect that I learned in that journey and as a result of meeting Dolores Cannon also was that I was a walk-in. That what happened in that indigo blue space, that was actually a dimension where a whole other part, a higher aspect of my oversoul walked in literally into my body. And so the idea of walk-ins is not new, and it happens quite frequently, especially in the regard of near-death experiences, when people vacate their body. So when the spirit, when the soul leaves the body, for a moment that leaves the physical body completely empty. That then needs to be filled, and it gets filled. And so many times walk-in scenarios can be a pre-life, a soul contract, or a pre-life contract or agreement. And in my case, that was so. But it was an agreement that I would have this experience. My old soul, all of that old soul, would then leave my body to make space for a whole 5-6 dimensional aspect of my oversoul to then come back into my body. And this was the agreement because they, the divine, my spirit team, wanted to make sure that my spiritual evolution would be accelerated, that I would go on and live my purpose. And my purpose is, part of it is sharing my story about death, and that death is not real, because many people, or humanity in general, is very fearful of death. We all have great fear and anxiety about death. And in fact, the moment of death, that beautiful sacred moment, which is like birth, when the soul comes into the baby and the baby takes its first breath, that is the first sacred moment. And that is the same as in death. Between these two sacred moments, your human life unfolds. And that sacred moment where you re-emerge to the universal divine consciousness, that sacred moment is so serene. There is nothing to be afraid of. So part of my purpose is to share this story and to help people to overcome their fear of death, because there is nothing to be afraid of. Because we are not just this body. We are so much more than this body. We are divine beings. We are a divine soul that is just temporarily housed in this mortal physical body. The body dies, but you, your essence, I, my soul, didn't die. It never dies. And so in retrospect, what is so beautiful is that the experience that cost me my life and my old life actually led to something very, very expansive and very beautiful. So my accident and my near-death experience have led me absolutely to where I am today and the path that I am on. And I am very grateful to be here sharing this story and sharing all my other gifts, offering beautiful sessions to people and playing a part in this global awakening as we are on our way to a new earth. And many of us play a part in that. And I am here as this little starseed guiding the way for many others. And I hope you have enjoyed my story. With much love. Thank you.
If you like this story, be sure to support The Other Side NDE by checking out our brand new book below.
Kota soledad, mi tapon cuida, mi tarondone protection, es aquí no también yo, paso a descubrir, a realizar, mi tapon compañía, sempre bom dia, se mi ca entregar. Coração tá tranquilo, se me tá bom acompanhar, divinamente é bom cuidar, e não tá nunca me só, cielo completo tá acompanhar-me, e tá bom acompanhar-me, e tá bom acompanhar-me, e tá bom acompanhar-me, acompanhar-me. I don't walk this road alone. Peace walks with me like a friend. I feel love in every shadow and grace that never ends. Even in the quiet moments, I can hear the sacred sound, a whisper deep inside me, saying you are safe and found. Mi tá bom acompanhar, sempre bom guiar, que se me tá entregar, e coração tá tranquilo, se me tá bom acompanhar, divinamente é bom cuidar, e não tá nunca me só, cielo completo tá acompanhar-me, e tá bom acompanhar-me, e tá bom acompanhar-me. E tá bom acompanhar-me, acompanhar-me. buong compagnia, sempre buon dia, desinita entregar mi corazón en tranquilidad. Sinita buong compagnia, divinamente buon cuidar, y no tan nunca mi sol, cielo completo, te acompañami, y te buon acompañami, y te buon acompañami, y te buon acompañami, 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 acompañami.
Nós também temos o programa The Great Awakening, arriba de Luna, dia 4 de agosto. Acompanha e história é fascinante. Eu pedi para dar um bom comentário, ou sentir o livro, para você se tem ainda. Eu queria ainda um pouco slow, sim. Pero uma história fascinante. E hopi coisa que ela bisa, tá dentro, lo qual não como atende de tour e centenares não de alma não com uma analisar na história de near that experience. So, pues aqui me tem a great de a história ng aqui ene na que bom po bisa ku tagaya pues na bida. Pues wala tinha opi história ng ku di ene ng ku dapat a verdade ku no ta existi maneira oral história ng spiritual ku opiende ta bisa no ta verdade ko verdade ko diablo ku kita sa pero ene ng maioria di nang na bida. Ok? Maioria de nanta na vida. Um cos massinha. Ora porque sa um verdade um cos busca a source de ecos. Ya? Se você tem uma história, punta fe onde la bini. Nós conhecemos a história com a verdade, que nós tende, dori tende, dori tende, dori tende. Então, vamos explicar uma coisa. Se tem um coisa com a verdade, ora com a história a bini fora diferente boca, eta kita fora de originalidade e história. Mas cada biaco e gente que conta, um outro gente que conta outro gente, tem certa coisa que dá for. Pero ora que você tem a história de fuente original de história, você tem the real thing. Então, onde é coisa não? Tour e near death experiencers nanki. Tá um coisa mais fascinante. Com a mim não te olvidar. Se você punta não, que quando a come se man passar, não por lagi bisabo. Se você punta não, una na nga bay si man passar não lubida. Pero esse senhora que bisa, ela experiência suni dessa experience na ay na 90. Pero nanda kita corda te awe. Nanda bira 80, 90 ay, nanda kita corda completamente na nota lubide. Então isso é fascinante. Yeah? Então, maneiro bisa me tinha um book que chama After. After de Dr. Bruce Grison. Inte basta wake book aqui não. E book para mim, depois como vez um estúdio de mais de 100 near that experience para mim mês. Então, eu vim topar com o título de book aqui. Então, eu busquei ele de uma maneira milagrosa, mas é book aqui na Corsou. Ja, de uma maneira milagrosa, não. É book aqui a topar me. Ja? Então, é book aqui para mim tá dicionário. De maneira, dicionário de near that experience. Então, contar for de sacar for de científico, um científico de anos 80, 70, 80. De tempo, não estava querendo de assunto de near that experience aqui. E aqui, Bruce, não estava querendo, su tata estava hardcore científico. Ora bem, começa a contar su tata, lo qual começa a querer, e tata você ter boca besta bom. Ok? Pero su boek, e boek kita sina bom, no lo de título, llama After, de Bruce Grissom, ja? E boek kita assina bom. Parce que do nabo, me desculpa. E do nabo, história na de near death experience, de passado e de presente, ja? Mas mes, detalhadamente. Então, para mim, boek kita uh, me bisava um gosto, francamente, com todo respeito. Minha conclusão, isso aqui está para mim personalmente. Singumi que ofender nenhum enemy. Me tá pone Bible, bani de buki que tá mais credible para mim. De como, para sobra, ene nan de buki que tá na vida ainda. Mas nem senhor que nós escutou. You understand? So, essa deve estar a história de, ma lui adesso nome, mi si chiama Alexander, no? Alexandriano, così. Anto, sua experiência na Amsterdam, em 2090 e pico. Esse aqui é o programa The Great Awakening, arriba já luna, dia 4 de, 4 de agosto. So, a maneira nós avisa, nós sabemos um cambio radical na evento, anto evento agora está completamente grátis, pero nós está PDC se pode dar uma donação, se você quer na pessoa turene pode dar assim uma donação. Para sobra tem gasto marana, mas nós mesmo cumprir com o gasto não de evento. O que está passando aqui? O qual vou por se foi de agora aqui, isso não que está preparado para o evento, nós põe flyer aqui, riba nos Facebook, pero foi já que não, se você com o telefone, scan e QR code aqui, então você vai direto na caminho para buscar o ticket não. Então, e não vou fazer donação, ok? Cara, bom, é por nada, pero nós está pedi um donação. A donação porta com que tamanho que tá? E porta qual tamanho que tá? Chiquinho, mediano, grande. Não olvidar que o evento que nós estamos a pedir $200, já? $200 para nós cobrir nos gastos na hora que nós chega completamente por nada, tem um risco que nós toma, pero de vida como está dentro aqui, mas sim, a botigo toma risco, onde sei me está haciendo aqui não. Nós temos em conta que lo qual que está realístico, pero me tengo seguir lo qual como guia no espiritual está donando como guia, ok? So, evento também está por nada, é 2 dias, 26 e 27. Dia 28 tá, é concerto, esse aí se nós te põe para 35 florim, $20, pero também para isso não que não por a forte 35 florim, nós precisa pagar o qual que vou pôr, ok? Dus nós se conseguir assina acessível para tu rende, não tem nenhuma excusa mais. É motivo de que nós assim é para motivo que durante toda a luna não, que nós estava a promover o evento aqui, gente a comprar cachi, $200, persona, ja? Dus, francamente, sem criticar, na coção nos mentalidade a op estranho. Pero você me não está juzga nenhum, me não que tu não é malo, pero that's our mentality, ok? Dus agora aqui está completamente grátis, nós te pedimos disso donação, e concerto está 35 florim, $20, se você não paga 35 florim, paga o qual vou pôr, ok? Dus nós assim nos parte, o qual nós decidimos que nós não está para evento, sobre evento que tem um mandato eta, como a rainha, dus me está assim, qualquer tinha ainda bisa me glem, cabeça de bom, não, minha cabeça de bom, não, não é espiritual, não deve mundo que não cabeça de bom. Ok? Até calde Kal tama tu beso aga programa. Puntra kal kan tu bien na bisekus ka beso de pero wote. Okay? So, new gente ku descobrir ng vida espiritual ng awakening dingen mo naki tene loko nanta. So, amit tene loko masadi meeting de stress ay tene loko mita. Okay? Controversial, não tem nada controversial. Pero e punto tami de bisabo, dia que vou permitir o mês awaken, vou vida de cambia forever. Ok? So, dia 26 e 27 de setembro, outro luna, evento também toma lugar nós não tínhamos mais na WTC, mas o orador que a fecha cambia, não tem 2 dias abrindo, dia abrindo, não são por assim, dia só, já? Então, é também na Acoya, e concerto cita sigue normal na, que é? Na Bracapoti Meme. Oké, esse cita sigue normal na Bracapoti Meme. Dus ja que tu sepa, a mí manda el vídeo de... Get ready to groove. Como te toca si mi dunabo permito? Que foi do bolso. Ai, não. Get ready to groove, né?
Uplift your spirit and experience a night of unparalleled musical magic. Get ready to groove, uplift your spirit, and experience a night of unparalleled musical magic. After 2 days of transformative sessions, Corsaw SP Year culminates in an electrifying live concert at the breathtaking Brackbutt May Amphitheater on Sunday, September 28th. From 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., prepare to be swept away by a stellar lineup of talent from across the Caribbean and beyond. On stage, we proudly present master musicians. The legendary Arnel Salzbach, Curacao, the captivating Ernesto Paz, Cuba, the soulful Rosaline Bay, Cuba, the dynamic Ernie Gregorius, Curacao, the brilliant Sergio Jansen, Aruba, the innovative Kyle Winkler, Aruba, and Curaçao's own fantastic Novine. Their incredible sound will set the stage for our powerhouse vocalists, featuring the incomparable voices of Rainier, Shamar, Monica, Ernesto, Rosaline, Coach Glenn, and many more surprises. This isn't just a concert. It's a celebration of unity, an outpouring of positive energy, and a testament to the vibrant spirit of our islands. Don't miss this unforgettable night under the stars. Tickets are available on a pay what you can with a basic price of ANG 35. Your contribution, whether the basic price or more, directly supports the mission of Corsaw SP Ta and helps us continue offering impactful events. Secure yours now at Corso Spirito, com or via Eventbrite, and be part of this historic musical journey.
Esa propaganda di concerto. Il concerto è un di evento che avevamo mostrato il flyer. Si può arrivare nos pagina di pagina anche di The Great Awakening, bota mira e video nan di evento. Ja? Non lubida maniera bota cammina botai tanto riba e pagina di Great Awakening e pagina di Glenn, e profile di Glenn, bota mira e placi aqui e QR code. Bota diz que o telefone scan e QR code e ti babo mesora na Eventbrite, bota busca bo kaartje. Não, bo botu mate com 2 kaartjes. No tuma 2 kaartjes si bo sang abo ku e hene bota tuma kaartje pe nota bini. Ok? Dus no yen stoel no sting que men culturene bobin solamente un candidato limitado de gente por bine. Dus nos no que pa tuma carci anto ota outro ene no por bine. Sobre ora que candidato carci caba e Eventbrite platform ta stop di duna carci. Dus outra coisa me está encorajando tu rende, tu uma bocachi trimpans, no guarda última hora. Se também tem coisas que nós temos na dias, especialmente na coisa, nós está gusta guarda última hora. Turbia, como eu tenho concerto de minha vida, nós está assim, propaganda 2 lunas adelantar, 2, 3 lunas adelantar, e dia de concerto, tu rende está chama mi telefone. A mim está com o mês dia 26. Chama a mim mês, para sobra me notei. Ok? Tu uma bocachi na trempan, anto aproveitar para botar na tempo. Essa aqui de turcos pa we, mi ta como que programa para dar de valor agregar na bo tempo valioso como do na o programa e nós está presente mas tanto mês e me quero despedir e amar danke que canção de me está contento e agradecido. Tu cos momentos. Tchau, tchau.
Mitad contento y agradecido pa' mi vida. Mitad contento y agradecido pa' mi salud, pa' mi familia, amigo y conocinan. Que sempre tão sostén pa' mí. Mitad contento y agradecido pa' oportunidad que está presente na mi tu día. Mitad contento y agradecido pa' sostén de universo. Mitad contento y agradecido pa' mi guía en lo espiritual, pa' mi ángel na tu real maná, que también está junto conmigo. Mitad contento y agradecido pa' mi jornada nueva. Mitad contento y agradecido. Mitad contento y agradecido pa' mi vida nueva, para el descubrimiento de que mitad, pa' que con mitad, y que con el propósito de mi vida de mi realidad está aquí. Mitad contento y agradecido pa' todo cual como experiencia, que ayuda a mi llega en el lugar, que llama mi vida aquí en la tierra. Mitad contento y agradecido. Mitad contento y agradecido. Mitad contento y agradecido pa' amor. Mitad contento y agradecido pa' felicidad, pa' comprender mi poder y cara en esa aquí. Y otro descubre su dinamita. Contento y agradecido de amor consciente y mi propósito en el mundo aquí. Contento y agradecido pa' mi vida nueva, para el descubrimiento de que mitad, pa' que con mitad, y que con el propósito de mi vida de mi realidad está aquí. Mitad contento y agradecido pa' todo lo cual como experiencia, que ayuda a mi llega en el lugar, que llama mi vida aquí en la tierra. Mitad contento y agradecido. Mitad contento y agradecido. Mitad contento y agradecido pa' amor. Mitad contento y agradecido pa' felicidad, pa' comprender mi poder y cada vez es aquí. Y el otro descubre su dinamita. Contento y agradecido de amor consciente y mi propósito en el mundo aquí. Mitad contento y agradecido pa' mi vida nueva, para el descubrimiento de que mitad, pa' que con mitad, y que con el propósito de mi vida de mi realidad está aquí. Mitad contento y agradecido pa' todo cual como experiencia, que ayuda a mi llega en el lugar, que llama mi vida aquí en la tierra. Mitad contento y agradecido. Mitad contento y agradecido.